Well, as you can see, it's Christmas Eve and I'm all festive. But anyway, I wanted to make this video because last night I saw a trailer of Light Girls, which is a sequel to Oprah Winfrey's documentary Dark Girls. Dark Girls was a documentary about the struggle of being dark skinned and how colorism has had an immense effect on dark skinned black women. And it wasn't a very good documentary. I think it was very male centric. It was focusing on how men perceived dark skinned women. And although that is a huge part of colorism in the black community and misogyny, it was more so looking for approval and saying dark skinned girls have nothing to worry about because here are some men who think you're beautiful, and not really focusing on how systematic colorism is in the black community. And the fact that they compared colorism to tanning kind of showed me that maybe the people working on the documentary are sketchy. Now there will be a documentary talking about the struggles of being light skinned, which what struggle is there to be light skinned other than the fact that you got your feelings hurt from grade school, someone called you yellow. And what I noticed is that when people talk about colorism, light skinned black people or those who are biracial or mixed race, they come up with this assumption that people do not perceive them as black enough, which that seems to me like it's projection, because most of the time I don't know any dark-skinned black person who literally went up to a light-skinned black person and said, "You're not black enough." It's usually brought up when someone points out a light-skinned black person's privilege, and then suddenly a light-skinned black person is like, "So I'm not black enough?" And I'm like, what are you trying to say? Are you not black enough to benefit from privilege? Are you not black enough to be an oppressor? Like, just because you're black does not mean you can't be an oppressor. If you are light skinned, you are an oppressor of the black community. And that's what it is. So when I saw the trailer, I'm like, they're going to try to make it like dark skinned girls are somehow victimizing light skinned girls. Because what I noticed is that when light skinned girls want to talk about how they're victims of colorism, it's always met with this narrative that dark skinned girls are somehow these violent bullies picking on these pretty little delicate flowers who are light skinned with curly hair. And light-skinned girls can never do any wrong. They just so happen to benefit from colorism, but it's not like they can ever perpetuate colorism. Not like they can ever say anything slick or cruel to a dark-skinned girl, which warrant them getting a punch to the face. And I'm not promoting child violence or anything like that. But we all know that when we were in elementary school, someone would say something very smart to us that would hurt our feelings. And when we felt violated, we would hit them. But then a teacher would see our retaliation. Then suddenly we were the problem because we hit back. We defended ourselves. They always saw when we responded to the bullies, not what the bullies said to us. And suddenly we were the one in the wrong. So when a dark-skinned girl beats up the light-skinned girl, people will be like, "Well, why'd you beat her up for?" And then a dark-skinned girl will be like, "She called me darky. She said she was pretty, and I wasn't because she had long hair." I'm pretty sure there are light-skinned girls who said some pretty slick things to dark-skinned girls. Even Beyonce, because I read somewhere online that Foxy Brown, Beyonce, and another woman in the early 2000s, before Beyonce and Jay were a thing, Foxy Brown was talking about how hard it was to be a dark-skinned black woman. And someone mentioned that Beyonce cut her off to say, "Well, light-skinned women suffer too." Now, I'm a huge fan of Beyonce, but let's be honest. Beyonce is not perfect. I am sure back in the day she has said some slick things about her light-skinned privilege, or thought that she was all that and did not want to check her privilege or anything like that. And I'm not trying to hold that against her, because I know Beyonce has changed and matured since then, because she, was into the whole slut shaming with nasty girls, stuff like that. She wasn't always pro-woman. Sometimes she was, but it was always muddled with respectability politics. No one is perfect. I mean, we've all been problematic. A lot of us have said some pretty colorist things or had internalized racism. I am not free of that. I've had my share of ignorance too. I've said some pretty slut-shamey, nasty things about other girls, even though, I was like, they're not very nice, so I'm going to say some pretty mean things to them. But that was wrong of me. But with this whole Light Girls documentary, I think it's going to be terrible. I'm going to see it because of morbid curiosity. I'm going to like check it out to see, what people are saying. But when it comes to colorism, baby, only one person benefits from it. That's light-skinned black people. It's not two sides to it. Would you think it's fair to have, what? No, wait, never mind. I think since everyone wants to talk about racism and everything, we should just have a documentary about white people talking about their experiences with racism and their privilege and how they feel and how they were being made fun of. Because the thing is, black people seem to have this warped ideal that because they are black, then any system that they benefit from, it's also a disadvantage. People are always worried about being black enough, and it makes me angry because it's like people are literally being killed on the streets. Mike Brown is dead, Tamer is dead, Ayanna Jones is dead. Like, so many black children are being killed recently. Antonio was killed, and people just want to say, well, I had to fight to be black. Like, what are you fighting for? You fighting to be treated the same as those who are dark skinned. I'm sorry, but I can't really empathize with people who look white or look damn close to it trying to be black, but they don't want to be black. Because I guarantee you, if these white passing or light skinned people were dark skinned for a day and they were on the street, they would run home crying. They would scream because they would hate it. They would hate being dark skinned. Being black isn't just about getting that dark skinned person to be your best friend or getting that dark skinned man or woman to date you because you want their approval. It's not just about getting into the cool parties or, even getting accepted by a group of black people who are darker than you, because you guys can concede that most black people in the black community are brown and dark skinned. That's why light skinned people always feel so victimized, because it's like, well, even though I got privilege, I'm still the minority. That's why white people be feeling so victimized when they live in the hood, and most of the people are POC, because even though they have privilege, they can't stand the fact that they are the minority. They can't stand it. So then they try to act like they're victimized because, people want to have solidarity. People are trying to preserve their mental health by navigating to people who are similar to them, who are darker skinned. And then light skinned people with a privilege are like, oh, I feel like I'm not black enough. But no one really said that. So I think this Light Girls documentary is just going to be terrible. I think it's going to be bad. And, I don't wish it the best of luck. I wish black girls and black women can team up and get that movie canceled. And I'm actually really mad that the interview is being released, because that just shows how hell-bent white supremacy is. To just go against something, when people of color say that, this is problematic, you don't want to listen. You like don't let those people bully you. Like, yeah, how dare the brown people try to tell you something right, to tell you that something is wrong. I'm not really here for it. I'm not really here for anything. But I just hate when people want to talk about how light-skinned girls suffer from colorism. It's always painting this narrative that dark-skinned girls are these less pretty, brute girls who pick on the pretty girls. And it's like, when we talk about colorism, we always talk about how it's a self-esteem issue. It's not just a self-esteem issue, okay? It's more than that. Sexual harassment, slut-shaming, internalized misogyny, light-skinned girls beating the dark-skinned girls up. No one ever wants to mention that light-skinned girls may beat up the dark-skinned girls up, or maybe not be physically violent. Because my thing is, when it comes to oppression, the reason why it may seem like the oppressor may be less violent and are more strategic, because they are protected. And when you put someone out in the wild and they don't really have any type of weapons or any type of device to defend themselves, they're going to be likely more violent physically than those who are more about intellect, that type of thing. So of course dark-skinned girls are going to be more physical. They're going to respond physically because, they were never protected. Light-skinned girls don't got to always beat someone up. They can just be all verbal about it and then get the point across. And then when they're being verbally violent, then the dark-skinned girl's going to bounce in the face. And I'm not saying, beat someone up and go out and hit them. But if you feel backed into a corner, what do you expect someone to do? Just sit there. But I do plan on watching Light Girls. I just hate because, white passing people who can, hide their blackness are sitting there trying to be more black. like that's a struggle. That is not a struggle. You trying to be cool, you trying to get into the parties, you trying to be friends with people, it's not a struggle. That is not a systematic struggle. I'm not saying it can't hurt you psychologically. I can't say that you never had to fight for things, you never struggle, but the struggle that you face is not because you're light skinned, it's because you're black. But somehow black people seem to think that they are immune to systematic privileges, and that the only type of privilege out there is white male privilege, not cis privilege, not able-bodied privilege, not neurotypical privilege, not male privilege, not light-skin privilege, and not white passing privilege. Just white privilege. Even though you're pretty close to white privilege, you don't think that you have other privileges. It's all layers. It's levels to this crap. It is. And I'm just disappointed that, light girls are like, but what about us? And then it actually worked. Now they got a little video of people sympathizing with them. And I don't want to watch it because we already know what colorism is. Why do we need to have oppressors telling us what colorism is and how it affected them? You are an oppressor. Now, you may not be actively oppressing people, but you are an oppressor. You are part of an oppressed group. It's kind of like with genetics. When a parent has a child, the parent, may be a carrier or something, and then they pass it down to that child. Now, just because you are a carrier of something doesn't mean that you necessarily have it, but you potentially, can instrument that. It's kind of hard to explain, but a lot of people are carriers of privilege. A lot of people are carriers of being oppressive. Now, maybe you don't have it in you to be oppressive, but you still have it, one way or another. That's all I have to say. I was trying to make this video as short as possible, but colorism isn't something that goes both ways. Like racism, white people can't suffer from racism, and light-skinned people can't suffer from colorism. It's institutionally impossible. Just because colorism is a white supremacy thing that was created by white people, that does not mean in a black community, interracially, light-skinned people are like, I don't have control over colorism. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You create a paper bag test. You discriminate against dark-skinned people. So you can't tell me that you have no control over colorism, because that is a lie. That's like white people saying I have no control over what my ancestors did. That's crap. So that's all I have to say for tonight. Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays to all who are celebrating.